series, or the second instance of this series, where we're taking a look at where Leap came from, where it was founded, all that other good stuff. It's really exciting for us to tell more of that origin story, because there's so much important detail that goes into it. And really, this is that element that I think you guys are going to relate a hell of a lot more to, even than the last one that we did with Steve. To my left, your right, depending on which way you're looking at the screen, sits the man, the myth, Tom Burry, president of New Look Home Design. So this is where Leap was founded. Honestly, in this conference room. I think Steve's name might even be on this trophy over here on the left-hand side. But
it's not 7 of them before that.
Yeah, right, exactly. So I'm excited to have Tom with us here today. The big thing we want to focus on today is a little bit different than what we did with Steve. Steve was obviously talking a little bit about his past, where the idea came from, how he worked on this, basically what led up to the creation of that. This is where the rubber meets the road. So once Steve started in these walls, it's how did these guys basically understand the value of this as it relates to their sales, their operations, production, all that other good stuff, and really what was the value once this thing got adopted. So Tom's going to elaborate on a lot of that stuff as we go through. Just some quick housekeeping before we get started. First and foremost, you guys, on your GoToWebinar little toolbar on the side of your screen, there's a question section. All right, we're going to be actively monitoring this throughout. So if you have any questions of like, hey, Tom, what about this? Or hey, you know, did you see X, Y, and Z? Or did you ever run into this? If you have any questions for Tom, because again, he is you. Like, you guys run a business, he runs a business. It's very relatable. So if you have any questions for what he's run into, questions that he asked when Leap was a fledgling product within their walls, ask away. We'll be monitoring this section throughout. Whatever you ask in that, we can obviously cater the content to, so make it your own, ask some stuff in it.
And not to mention, you know, I just wanted to add in there, even if there's a question that you have that doesn't pertain to Leap, I don't know how much time we have here, but
we got plenty of time.
I'm certainly happy to answer any questions. You know, we've been doing this for a long time, so just fire away. We're happy to have you guys join us.
Yeah,
and thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Awesome. So first things first, you guys, always like to drop a little bit of a poll in here just to understand who's using Leap and who's not. Feel free just to chime in real quick. Michelle, if you can cue that up. Michelle's our marketing manager. She's also on the line right now. What's up, Michelle? So again,
hello.
We're going to be answering these questions super fast. We'll give it about another 15 seconds or so, and then we'll kick this thing off. So it's like cue the Jeopardy music, right? Yeah, right. Yeah. So, all right, Michelle, you can cut it. We're good. Sweet. So at this point, let's get this thing kicked off, and we'll go from there. So I think going back to you, Tom, I think the best thing is give us a little background on New Look, when you founded it, how this came about.
Sure. So it was a cold day in March of 2003. You want the real story, right?
Yeah, real story.
Real story. Okay. So we were already in the selling home improvement space. 22 and 23 years old. Of course, we thought we could do everything better than anybody else. So that's really how New Look started. We said, okay, we're going to do this on our own. We put $500 each in the bank account. And we started an office in my dining room. Now, remember, I was 22 years old at that point in time. It was my first home, and the dining room was used for absolutely nothing.
Nice.
So that was our office.
Yeah.
So we started out of my dining room, 405 Shady Nook Avenue, in here right here in Catonsville, Maryland. And we, like I said, we just put $500 each in the bank, and our conference table in our dining room cost $300. So
nice.
So then we were down to $700.
Yeah.
Right. So really, I mean, you know, the company we worked for, the model was canvassing, and we just, you know, we took that model. You know, we saw how it worked, and we figured we could, like I said, just do a better job at it. I just remember, I mean, we would go out canvassing probably from 4 to like 7 at night, and then we, you know, me and my partner, we would just run each other's leads, and you know, it snowballed. Eventually, we would add a canvasser here, a canvasser there. Again, still working out of my dining room. And, you know, next thing you know, we weren't running leads. That felt good.
It was a good day.
That felt good. It felt good. But we hired a salesman, and then we had our first office. We got our first office, I think, within 6 months of being in business, so that felt really good.
Yeah.
My partner, you know, he was all about the office. I was like, man, the dining room's good, the rent's good.
Hey, Google did it, right?
Hey, man, absolutely.
YouTube was created in the garage.
Absolutely. So we just, you know, I mean, it was just boom, boom, boom. We just kept, you know, we were turning and burning. We were doing great. That was back in March of 2003. You know, we were killing it. We were killing it. And then, you know, unfortunately, 2008, 2009 came. And that really made us look at our business model and how we were going to do business moving forward, which is actually a really good thing. It was very humbling because we were very successful up until that point. And it really made us look at everything as a whole. And
all the different components of the business,
just
the sales,
just
the marketing,
everything, just our whole. Here was the thing, if we were spending $1, we needed to get $10 back for that dollar. So there was no spending.
Yeah.
Not frivolously, but again, if we were spending $1, we needed $10 back.
Yeah.
Right. So, you know, it's funny, 2008, 2009, at that point in time, we had some satellite offices, some satellite sales offices that were close to like our main installation hub, probably like 20, 30 miles away. And it made us look at that business model and we're like, we don't need all this. We pulled everybody back under one roof. And we said, we're going to get lean and mean, and we're going to get through this. And I think that is when 2009 is when I actually interviewed Steve Stencil.
Nice. So
I can tell you about that if you like.
Yeah, we'll get into that in just a second.
All right, cool.
So talk to us a little bit about your day-to-day roles and responsibility within the organization. Obviously, the title of president comes with a lot of different pieces.
Sure.
You're a busy man.
Sure. So as president, you know, and I chose this. It's basically your operations. I mean, it's all of the day-to-day. My partner was very heavily focused in sales and marketing, and you know, as president, I mean, I was very much in the weeds for a very long time. Maybe still a little too much, but that's another conversation.
So managing the crews, production,
managing the crews. I looked at every single contract that came through. I oversaw every job that was installed, not in person, but remotely. And, you know, I mean, that was my thing. It was really, I wanted to keep all that really close. That was my thing.
Got it. So before we talk a little bit about Steve, I think one of the things, we actually got a question here. Let's see what it says.
Sure.
All right. So Jason says, how much time and resources you invested in getting Lead to where it is today? 5 years, 5 million, 20,000 hours? Just very curious. We'll get to that one in just a sec, I promise.
Good question, though.
That is a good question because it wasn't overnight. I think that's for damn sure. It was not overnight. And obviously it's grown and evolved a lot since then, but we'll get into that in just a sec. So the other question I have for you too is as we go in to your day-to-day, et cetera, things obviously have changed pretty drastically over the last 20 years. Not 20, but 17.
Almost 17.
So when you look over the last 17 years, a lot has changed.
Right.
So up until that point of Steve sitting at this conference table doing the interview, talk to us a little bit about how you ran. So what was your sales process? You said you guys originally were very canvas heavy. I know a couple of feet that way, you have a call center that's operating as well. So walk me through that point of canvasser generates a lead, or Pat went out and created a lead through a radio ad or Google. Like, walk us through your strategy for marketing all the way through that point of a rep going into a home.
So when we first started, it was all canvassing. We literally, high school, college age kids for the most part.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, and myself sometimes when I needed to. We, go door to door, obviously, and bring the leads in. At the end of the evening, usually they work the shift like from 4 to 8. They would come back in, bring the leads in. They would enter them into a daily marketing binder.
Okay.
And then you have a stack of leads. So it's a call to set. So that means the canvasser got the lead and it was a call to set the appointment.
Yeah.
Or you had the sets. So those were like the gold, and then the call to sets were kind of like
it was either
copper
appointment,
I guess maybe or something like that.
Yeah, the lukewarm versus hot.
Right. So that's what it looked like. So then what we would do is we would call the leads the day before. We would set them, and then what we would do is we would call the leads an hour before
Got
and qualify them.
Got it.
Right? And this was all done with little slips of paper.
Yep.
On it, smiling and dialing. I spent Monday nights doing that.
Nice.
And then the sales rep would go out to the home, and obviously either there was a reason why he couldn't pitch, which was frowned upon.
Yeah.
Then maybe they didn't sell the lead, or they sold the lead, which was celebrated. The problem with that piece is you never know what's happening.
Yeah, it's that question
in real time. It's like you wake up. It's like Christmas morning every day, but then you could be pretty upset.
Yeah,
or
you got a couple lumps of coal.
Yeah, exactly.
So pausing there real fast. So you generate the lead. Again, whether that's coming through a digital source, you obviously originally entered those into a binder. Eventually, you switched over to a CRM.
Yeah.
What CRM do you guys use currently?
We actually we still use Market Sharp, and that's.
Were you guys on it back in like the CD days?
So we started with a CRM. I think it was called Act, and I think we were with them for like a year or two.
Okay.
We came on to Market Sharp. We have great partners over at Market Sharp.
Yep.
They've been fantastic.
Shout out to Tim and Jason on this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Michelle.
Yep, definitely Michelle. So we converted everything over to Market Sharp, and that made things. That helped a lot.
Okay.
That helped a lot. That was like the first step.
Got it. So
get that CRM, that's the first step, right?
Yeah. And then you guys obviously started kicking up the Google, Google. You started working up your AdWords, your SEO, etc.
So we started it.
I know you guys do a lot of radio.
Sure. So we understood that canvassing, we couldn't have all our eggs in that basket. There could, Congress would pass a law one day and say no canvassing. Now they would never do that because they canvass on their own for campaigns.
Yeah.
But it's like the do not call registry. So we knew that we had all our eggs in one basket. So we really wanted to diversify our leads.
Cool. So you started digitizing that side of your business. Still have the call center to qualify and make sure that that person's really
Absolutely.
Interested in the product that you guys have. Get that appointment set. When someone goes out to the home, what are they bringing with them? They've got obviously forms. I know when Steve was talking on his last one, he'd walk out with sample materials. Right now in this office, near us, we've got a stack of Owens Corning shingles all over the place. So again, not all over the place. It's very neat. But again, when we look at this stuff, it's
sure. So let's pick up on the so we qualify the lead an hour before, then we send the rep out. That was back when we had the reps actually in the office.
Yeah.
In the afternoon, so they were ready to go. Because you had to, because you were qualifying these leads an hour before.
Yep, it was like, get in your car, get your ass over there, you got an hour.
Exactly. So, they would go, and just as me being a sales rep, just remember back then, pulling out your price guide. You have your price guide, you have your 3-ring binder, you have your pitch book, another 3-ring binder, you have your measure book, another 3-ring binder, and then you have your, all of your demo tools.
Got it.
Right? So
you got a lot of stuff.
So, and it's funny because I can't tell you how many times, and I'm a pretty organized guy, how many times I went into someone's house to sell them a roof, and I didn't have a roof contract. And I didn't have a roof contract. So I think in our heyday, when it came to paper contracts, we had all included with all of our products. If you bought the sun, the stars, and the moon, you could have a 7-page just product contract.
Okay.
And you had to carry those with you.
And you had to carry multiple contracts.
And you had to carry multiple, because if you screwed up, or you're trying to scratch out, which is what you're doing most of the time. So,
nice.
So that's how that went. So again, back to what I was telling you about, like Christmas morning. The thing was you didn't know what was happening in real time.
Yep.
You had to wait until the next
I'm sure
day.
you were anxiously waiting to text that person going, what's going on? Everything good? Question mark?
Absolutely. Text?
Oh yeah, good point. T9, it was the T9, right? We had to hit the 3 button 5 times to get that.
Right. Now, I think back in the day it was pagers, but that's a long time ago. We don't have to talk about that.
Nice.
But so that was so really just like the you didn't have any transparency. You didn't know as management, you didn't know what was taking place. Right? You didn't know what was taking place. Sales reps could go to a home or not go to a home.
I'm sure you've had both.
You didn't know. You didn't know. Yeah, absolutely. I've done both. I've done both.
Guilty. So obviously a lot of that changed once Steve came in. So you were joking around with me earlier, talking a little bit about what your first interaction was with Steve.
Right.
You had, obviously you guys recruit very heavily. How many outside sales reps do you guys have currently?
Any given time we have between 35 and 50, I would say.
Got it. Okay. So you guys are obviously constantly recruiting to fill those.
Constantly recruiting, but it's, you know, it's a tough role.
It is.
Me sitting in the seat, I mean, I was probably an average salesperson. It's a tough gig, but you know, we try to train people as much as we possibly can.
Yeah.
Get them out there. But regardless, it's a little bit of a revolving door. It's gotten better over the years.
Yep.
But
and everybody on the call obviously has felt that same exact pain as well.
Sure.
So talk to us what it was like when Steve walked in, his goofy ass walking in the room.
So I remember it clear as day. That's one of the things. Like, I believe it was 2009. Our sales manager had reached out to me. He said, "Hey, Tom," he's like, you know, the guy's name was Rich, great guy. He has since retired, but he reached out to me and said, "Tom," he's like, "I'm on the fence with this guy." He's like, "I love him, but he looks like he's right out of high school. I don't know what to do." He's like, "Can you do a second interview with him?" Because usually we don't do second interviews for salespeople. So I was like, "Yeah, absolutely. I'll do a second interview." I think my partner was away at the time, or there was something that he couldn't do the interview. So I came in. Rich walked me in at a conference table just like this, and he was like, "Hey, Steve Stencil." And I looked at Steve, and he looked like he was probably 18 years old, maybe a $110 wearing boots in his grandfather's suit. And I looked back at Rich and I was like, "Really?" But listen, as soon as I sat down at the table with Steve, Steve had a binder like this thick, that thick, of accolades from I think Radio Shack selling cell phones,
Yep.
Best Buy selling computers, CompUSA selling computers. And just as soon as we sat down, you know, the guy was just so passionate.
Yeah.
And it didn't take long for me. I was like,
Yeah.
you know, definitely got to give this guy a shot.
Yeah.
And man, that's probably one of the best decisions I've ever made. Because because it was really all up to me. I could have said, "No way, this guy's in his grandfather's suit," you know. But so that's how we connected with Steve. And again, it was in a tough time. You know, that was in 2009. So
you guys were obviously being pretty selective.
Oh, we were.
And there was a lot of people who needed jobs.
We were lean and mean. And again, like I said, man, if it didn't bring in, if you spent one, it didn't bring in 10, we're not doing it.
Yep.
So again, that was like I said, man, it's one of the best decisions. I'm glad I made that one.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you bring Steve in. Obviously, you know, we heard on the last call a lot of the sales accolades that Steve did. Again, like I said, his name is on this trophy on the side of the conference room quite a few times. He killed it for the better part of what? He was 8 years?
Steve was our top rep from 2008 to, I don't think he got, I'm sorry, 2009. Yeah, he got it, 2009, all the way up through 2016, 7 years.
Yep, 7 years.
Top sales rep.
Again, Steve came in, absolutely crushed it for you guys, but obviously it was very different times when, you know, when we start talking about each one of those 7 years broken out. So obviously the beginning of this, when Steve came in, the first thing he started doing was he started going through a lot of the original processes you had. You know, you had the contracts in triplicate, you had all your materials, your pitch books, etc. So Steve's walking around with a small new look library, correct?
Yep.
Got it. Goes into the home, follows exactly.
If you want to call it small.
Yeah, no. It's just right. That's what everyone says.
All right.
No, I'm just kidding. But so with that said, you're obviously going into the home with all the materials that were prescribed. From there, Steve obviously started deviating from that process a little bit. As somebody who controls said process, what was that like? You know, was it met with something?
Well, here's the thing, and I'm going to be honest with you. Steve and our director of installations would attest to this. Steve, his paper contracts were the best that I had ever seen. Because you remember, every contract came through me. I looked at every single contract.
Yeah.
Steve Stencil's contracts, you could read them. He writes like, kind of, never mind.
He'd say,
no.
He was going to say dress like a girl.
But he very good handwriting.
Yeah.
And there was never any issues with Steve's
accuracy or anything like that.
Never any issues with that. So
What about your other reps?
Like I said, I saw every contract.
What were some of the common mistakes that you ran into?
I don't think that they were ever really common.
Or just consistent.
I think that the craziness that I was seeing on contracts come through, I would just put my face in my hands and I was like, how does this happen? I understand that you haven't been doing home improvements for any more than 3 weeks, but how did you write that on the contract?
What was the dumbest thing you've ever seen, if anything?
Oh my
Probably
goodness.
a loaded question. But
oh my goodness.
He's already shaking.
I couldn't even begin to tell you we're going to take the grandmother out to dinner at Golden Corral because this
is dead serious.
This is dead serious. I'm talking things that they would write on the contract, just like I said, just utter craziness.
All the stuff that they would promise that, hey, you buy this roof today, grandma's getting that chicken fried steak, right?
Right. So just getting back to the contract. So Steve was an exception to the rule. Just contracts were just a nightmare. And when it came to production, just dealing with that, I saw every one of them. They were a nightmare.
Got it. Okay. So Steve starts creating, I think the first iteration of this was it started going over to an Excel sheet. Did he show you that sheet before he started using it, or was it just something he went out and created on his own?
I never saw that.
Got it. Okay. And then from there, he obviously started building that first round of what ultimately became Leap. So let's talk a little bit about how that was approached within the organization, because I know originally he used it for himself, and then other reps started using it. So that technology started to be disseminated through the ranks.
Right.
Obviously, that's a huge shift in operation. So for you guys, what was your initial response when you heard that they wanted to do this?
Well, I mean, it's kind of like anything else, again, Steve's an exception. And we knew that Steve is not your typical.
He's a bit of a unicorn.
Right. And I'm not, please, sales reps, I love sales reps, but he just wasn't your typical sales rep. He took, like his contracts were boom, 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 boom. He wasn't just focused on making the sale. He was making sure that he was good to go. Everything was, his butt was covered anyway. So as far as like the, sorry, I went off my tangent.
No, you're good. So what I was saying was going back to it, obviously he started shifting the processes a little bit.
My apologies. So obviously Steve brought this to me and my partner and was like, hey, listen, man, I've created something really cool. I'd love to use this for everybody, for all of our sales reps. And we just kept pushing it off. We were like, this is good, but we're busy. We don't want to change anything. Nobody likes change. So we kept pushing it off. And then I think at one point in time, I was on the production side. I was trying to go somewhat digital, at least like just some forms, like some PDFs that you could put on like a tablet or something like that.
So I'll ask you this. No one randomly wants to start shifting away from what they're currently doing. So what was ultimately driving that shift to digital?
No, I think, nobody wants to change.
Yeah.
I'm too busy. I'm too busy dealing with Mrs. Jones and, this person over here. And, I think we needed something on the production side.
Okay.
Or, we were trying to automate some things.
And was that because you were running into so many of those bullshit contracts that made you stuff your face into your hands?
It was just really about some efficiencies. So what happened was, and I was watching Steve's version of the Founder Series, and it reminded me. And he was like, okay, he was like, I can build you something for production, but you have to at least let our Maryland office use this thing that I'm using.
Got it. So he
kind of hamstrung me.
Nice. I'll do that, but it's the Godfather model, right? I'm going to ask you for this favor, and you can't say no.
Exactly.
Okay. So he builds this thing for you, production, digitizes it, but with the caveat that Maryland was going to be using the sales tool in the field.
Absolutely.
Got it. So we can start broaching this question for you, Jason, that you asked a little bit earlier, where it was, what did it take to really get that thing in a place where you needed to go? Obviously, Steve had put in a ton of time building this thing, developing the price books, et cetera, to get it to a place where it needed to be for Steve to functionally go out and sell in the field. But for you guys, as you started rolling this out, did Steve really own that training for the other reps? What kind of role did he play in the rollout of this? To
Absolutely. Absolutely. Steve, and it's funny you're bringing up memories because I do remember that. Steve, so we agreed to let our Maryland office adopt it.
And to be clear, everybody, if this is Maryland, they've also got a Virginia and a Jersey office as well.
Right. Yeah, and we've got them. Yeah, we actually cover 5 states and Washington, D.C., just to give you an example of kind of the area, the coverage that we have right now. And it was like that. It was like that at the same time. I believe that we had our New Jersey office at that point in time. So we agreed to adopt it in Maryland. Kind of was like as a test pilot, and Steve absolutely helped with training the other reps on it. And what was really cool was they had a group me. A group me is like a group text. Just I think there's an app for it.
Yeah, there's also an integration in Leaf. If you guys are actively using it, you can turn that on.
For those who don't know, so it's like a group me is like a group text, and the really cool thing about it was. Especially Steve liked it, was once the Maryland sales team adopted it, they could, every night, just about every night, they were sending, either maybe it was a bug that he needed to address or function that he should add, or maybe take this away, or, hey, it'd be really cool if it did this. So that was really like.
Basically turned into a feature request.
Absolutely.
Got it.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, and it also, you guys, one of the other beautiful things about the GroupMe integration is it also turned in a way for them to talk crap to each other. It was one person sells a deal and it's like, hey, Tom, I sold that deal. What are you doing?
Yeah.
And it was a way to really incite this very cool competitive atmosphere.
Friendly competition.
Friendly competition. And obviously in sales, that's everything. Salespeople will constantly do this just because it's going to bring out the best in each other. So obviously Steve starts building this thing. It gets a lot of traction from there. At what point for you guys did you recognize that, hey, we're busy, but there's something more to this and we should be rolling it out? Or was there any like one aha moment?
No, it was, again, we were busy, but it was very apparent. Not just, I could see it taking shape, but, our team of, in the production and our sales teams, I mean, everybody was just champions. It's like, you like to have like at least one champion in your organization for something. We had like, 20 or 30 champions.
Yeah.
And
what was the feedback from the production side? Because obviously we hear from the sales teams all the time that, oh my God, it made my life that much easier when I went into house. As it goes downstream, what about your installers, or what about any of those folks in ordering that had to go and input all this crap?
Well, I think the big thing was, the contracts, not just the contracts, but the results, the contracts, just the transparency, just because we literally had one person dedicated to, dispatching and scheduling appointments, the next day following up on the appointment results, and then attaching contracts, and then attaching this, all that to Market Chart. When we adopted Leap in the Maryland office, all that went away in Maryland. It's gone.
Got it. So you literally had somebody doing it for remote offices.
Yeah, we had one person in our headquarters that was doing that for all, and I remember her coming to me, and she was concerned because she started having less to do.
Yes.
And I was like,
should I be worried about this?
Don't worry. We'll find something. These are good things. So it didn't take, as far as adoption for New Jersey and Virginia, it didn't take long.
We're trying to spread as well.
Like I said, it was, exactly. The only reason we were pushing it off at that point in time was, again, we were just really busy. I mean, we were experiencing hyper growth back then in those years. So, that's why we were more like, but when we saw the result, it was like, oh, we gotta cut that paper cord.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing, you guys, and this is just, what he's saying is just, it really touches on a very specific point that we hear day in and day out. I'm just so busy. Is this one of those things where you wish you had done it earlier, or is this one of those things where you look at it and you're like, at the time, there's literally nothing I could have done, et cetera, to get it up and running? And I know that's a loaded question, but.
It is a loaded question. I think that we adopted it really fast after actually being able to see what it did for that test location. I guess we could have adopted it a little bit faster.
Yeah.
We could have adopted it a little bit faster. But again, it's all about change, and now I'm a totally different person than I was then. When it comes to change, I mean, if it's going to, efficiencies and growth and profitability, bring it on.
It's kind of imploded a lot of that old school of like, we've always done it this way, so
absolutely.
Piss off with your innovations.
That's one thing I can honestly say is Leap has changed my viewpoint on technology.
Cool.
Because I'm kind of old school, but once we adopted Leap, it's like bring it on. Bring it on.
He's old school, yet he has a fully networked system in his conference room that can follow everyone around with the camera.
I'll thank Ashley for that.
Nice. Well, cool. So I guess the next big steps is let's talk about it. So, you obviously have seen a tremendous amount of efficiency gained through this.
Right.
So let's talk about some of those core features that have changed.
Sure.
You mentioned that one person who was dedicated, entering everything in market chart, resulting the leads, et cetera. That person effectively became obsolete. You obviously found them another place within the organization.
She was able to do much more more important tasks as far as aside from like just data entry, attaching files, getting them to the right people, because Leap has that functionality. It attaches to your CRM. You can get it to the right people. The results are reported, and again, we were able to repurpose her tasks into more important things, not just data entry and the manual piece of the getting started in that production cycle.
Awesome. And then the other thing we want to talk about too is as Leap has evolved over the years. Obviously, when Steve was there, or was still a new look employee, it really didn't have the functionality that it does today, which is like the secure payment capture, the financing, all that other stuff. As those different rollouts have come with the product updates, where have you guys been at in terms of adopting some of that stuff? Because I know right now you guys are really tied in with one of Leap's partners, which is Service Finance, correct?
Yep. Absolutely.
You guys are really
great partner too. Thanks a lot, Service.
Sure. But again, as we look at all this stuff for you guys, how have you seen a lot of these new features been adopted? Like this goes back to that whole concept of technology is viewed very differently.
Sure. So I guess where it all starts with Leap is where it starts is really the price guide. I can just take it back. It's funny because I was just thinking about all this last night. I just remember when I would need to change one price, I would literally have to bring my whole sales team into a room.
This was pre-Leap.
This is pre-Leap. And we would have to bring them in. We'd have to get their price guides, and we would have to give them the new page or pages for their price guide.
Put them in their binder.
Click, click. I mean, it was like it's almost like a bad dream hearing the click, 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 because you like 30 times.
Yeah. You have enough hole punches.
Right. And then what happens if somebody couldn't make that appointment? They were running leads. They're out there. They have price guides that are inconsistent.
Yeah.
That was, Leap, almost forces you to get your crap together when it comes to your price guide. A lot of companies, and we were not victim, but we were.
It's like you're victim of your own fault.
We were that company. We were that company that our price guide was. It was a mess. It was a mess because everybody had their hands in it and trying to change. You get a shingle increase or a window increase. It's okay. Now we got to have a sales meeting. We got to bring everybody in. No. Yeah. Now, once you get all of your pricing in the Leap, price guide management at its finest.
Yeah.
Price guide management at its finest. You
refresh button.
One button, and the beauty of it is nobody knows.
Yep.
Nobody knows.
So it removes a lot of that bias. They up the prices. Damn it.
Price increases. Oh, you guys want to get fat? Well, actually, no. we saw a 15% price increase. We're passing on 3%. But regardless of that, you can make that at the push of a button.
Yeah.
And again, it's you don't have to bring everybody in, and it's done. It's literally the click of a button. So that's price guide.
Yeah.
That's price guide.
So you guys also said too, you were in quite a bit of a hyper growth stage when Steve was here. So what are some of the things that you saw, like aside from just the efficiencies, what are some of the other pieces that you guys saw as a benefit to adopting this into your organization?
Sure. Well, I went back to the craziness that I used to see with contracts, and I remember the day that I think I had probably $2,500 worth of paper contracts in boxes that I threw in the dumpster. And that was probably one of the best days of my life.
You had the ritual burn.
No, we had the ritual burn. They just went in the dumpster, but it was probably 5 to 10 boxes of contracts. Once we fully adopted Leap, we knew we didn't need any more paper contracts. If you wanted to change a product or verbiage, or you're throwing those things away.
Yeah.
With these contracts, you can change the underlayment you're going to put on a roof on your contract at the click of a button.
Yeah.
And you don't have to bring everybody in. You don't have to call the printer and have new contracts printed. And that was huge. But then, it came down to when you're training a sales rep, you have a condensed amount of time to train a sales rep. You can only fit so much in that amount of time, and you want to get them on the street. Contracts was a huge portion of financing, of training, because they couldn't come back with contracts are wrong, because then they have to go back out.
Yeah.
They can't run leads. So that was a huge burden that was lifted when it came to training, was the actual training of how to fill out a contract, because Leap literally walks you through it. It's almost impossible to make a mistake on a contract or miss something, because you can flat out set it up that way.
Yep.
So,
lock it all down. And
absolutely.
then, so obviously contract errors were a big driving force in a lot of the shift. From a sales perspective, what did you guys see? Was there any shift on the closing percentages? Same with the retention rates. Obviously, the more active you have somebody involved, the less likely you are to lose the business, et cetera. So what did that look like?
From the sales side, I would probably say, with contracts, I just focus on contracts, because contracts is a huge thing when it comes to Leap. Like what it did for contracts for us, it was, especially me, that I was seeing every single contract. So I'm dealing with these on the back end.
Yeah.
And just like the compliance, the transparency, the mistakes.
You can obviously use that as a training.
All of these contracts, they essentially really look this. You can make it so they look the same.
Yeah.
It's very hard. A guy or girl could have been selling cars 2 weeks ago. Right? So then they're selling roofing, window, siding, doors, and gutters now. And filling out contracts is really tough, and they have to be great.
Yeah.
They have to be great. And from a sales perspective, it was kind of like a CYA. It covered your butt.
Yeah.
It covered your butt. The way that Leap, the way that you can program Leap, if it's set up properly, it really covered salesmen's their butts. They don't. Salespeople, they work on commission. They don't want to go back after new contracts.
No, they want to be running another lead.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Exactly.
So obviously one of the big things that we want to make very abundantly clear is now that Leap has become its own separate entity, we're still very active with these guys. They were really the beta for whether or not this thing is going to work. They were really the case study to say, yeah, this is legit product, and this is something that we need to be effectively building for all.
Right.
So
back to sales, I just wanted to make another point. Prior to Leap, you were pitching your lead, you were either selling it or you were not selling it, and then you were coming in to bring your contracts in at some point in time within the next day or two, bringing a check in, things like that. And it just, none of that takes place. And again, it's one of those things that I just take for granted, that we all take for granted.
Yeah.
That it, it took me a while, in preparation for our sit down. I had to think about those things. Just went back to those days and was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe that's how we operated at that point in time. But you could have, your results for your lead, you had your contracts, you had any notes from the rep, and because if they didn't sell it, then that gave your rehash department all the tools that were needed,
all the data in the world,
everything that you needed to go back and capture that sale.
Yeah. Hey, we measured every window and you're downstairs. Hey, let's drop the price by X amount. Or hey, we're running a special. Let's do X, Y, and Z. Very cool, Tom. I think it's awesome. So I think big thing we want to point out to anyone is obviously it's worked very well for these guys. It's where it was born. It's really just blossomed into a lot. And these guys were honestly the reason why it is what it is, because we've had thousands and thousands and thousands of repetitions using Leap in the walls of New Look before it was ever available to any of you guys. So,
and I just wanted to add, talking on the sales side, the integrations that we have. The integrations, I mean, just when you look at the CRM, I think we've already spoke about the CRM integrations, which we have a lot of great partners with that on that end. Just the functionality of what can be done. Again, like I said, it almost eliminated a whole position. Back when we first started using this wholeheartedly, like I said, we repurposed the tasks. We didn't fire somebody or anything like that.
There's a lot of family businesses on there. Well, a lot of the family businesses that we work with, that's one of their concerns. It's like, oh, I don't want to make that an obsolete position. It's no. You use that as an ability to empower them to do bigger things.
Do bigger things, and to you're always. It seems like you're always shorthanded.
Yep.
Right. You're always shorthanded. Integrations, when you talk about the sales side, now we have some really good partners, EagleView, and
because you guys, when you pitch a roof, you're using a quick square or a full report on every single
quick square, and then there's also Hover, which is there, and I just remember back in the days of being a sales rep and having to be out there in the rain or the snow and trying to hand measure with my price guide and my loafers. And
trying not to eat it.
Trying not to step in dog crap.
Yeah.
Trying not to step in dog crap, right?
Yeah.
And those integrations have totally, and it goes back to training.
Yeah.
Goes back, how long does it take you to train somebody to measure siding?
Yep.
Or to measure a roof?
Yep.
Right? It's not easy. It eats up your training time.
What's your average turnaround in getting a rep out in the field now?
I would say week and a half.
Week and a half? What was it prior?
Well,
to get them really functioning.
Prior, it was probably close to 2.5 to 3 weeks. But the problem is you were sending them out there with not enough tools.
Yeah.
Not enough tools. We were getting they were being put out there before they really should have been out there. Kind of.
Yeah. Trial by fire.
Sink or swim.
Yep.
Sink or swim. With the when it came to lead with contracts and the measurements, and I can talk about financing as well for a minute too. It just eliminated a lot of that. So
yeah, because you guys now currently going on to the financing piece of it, you guys are offering financing in the home to get them actually approved or denied, correct?
Right. So just speaking of financing has been huge when introducing Leap. At that point in time, probably 55% of our deals were financed.
Yeah, I mean, a roof's a big ticket item.
Yeah. So 55% of them were financed, right? And the reason that was, at least my presumption, is that there just wasn't enough programs out there to tailor to our customers' needs, right? When we adopted Leap fully, and we had these integrations with our great financing partners, you didn't have to train on how to calculate payments, on the programs, because before we could only offer like 1 or 2 programs because it was very hard to train somebody on these things.
Yeah,
they had to break out a calculator.
Yeah.
You literally had to break out a calculator and find the payment, and then times that by the months of the term of loan and put it. So all of that, it took it away, totally took that away.
Yeah.
On the, when it comes to, I know you mentioned, how Leap helped us grow. When it comes to growth, and I just want everybody to really think about this, and who's been there and done that, is when back in, before Leap, you would go out to the house, you would get a credit app filled out, you sold the deal, you felt really good about it, you get the contract signed, you come back to the office, you hand that thing back in, you get an approval, or you hope you get an approval,
Yeah.
right? Then you have to go back out to the house,
Get them to sign the docs.
get the document signed, so you're not running another lead, and you're leaving that customer kind of in that purgatory. It was like, am I approved? Right.
How the hell am I going to pay
while
for this?
While they're dealing with buyer's remorse,
Yep.
right?
And also potentially getting another person running a lead on it.
Exactly.
Right? Getting a quote from another competitor.
So with Leap, starting from the top, not only, which is why I think we shifted from not 55%, now we're currently at 80% finance.
Wow.
80%. We were able to offer them
Multiple offers.
multiple programs with multiple different partners,
Mm-hmm.
right? If one of the other programs didn't meet their needs, you were able to get the approval on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
You're able to get the docs executed on the spot. You're able to deliver it to the customer, and you're able to run the lead tomorrow and do the same thing all over again.
That's awesome.
So think about what that looks like in scaling your business. Not only can you get sales reps out on the street faster as the leads are pouring in, which hopefully they are for everybody, but you can also, when it comes to like the financing piece, they're not running around getting loan docs signed. They're getting all that's done, right on the spot.
Very cool.
On the spot.
Obviously, we've been going for like 47 minutes, you guys. One of the things I want to do too is, Tom, if you had to give maybe like 3 pieces of advice to everybody listening, as someone who's been there, done that, and obviously you guys have seen this is where it was created. It evolved from something that was very small into something that was very big, taking an individual like Tom, who's insanely busy day in and day out. Trust me, I talk with him all the time. But when you look at all of those roles and responsibilities and seeing how a tool could come in and completely shift how they run their business, pretty monumental. Obviously, this has evolved into a much bigger monster than that, even back in the Steve days. But if you could go back, knowing that you are very much that same persona or profile as the people listening to this, whether now live or whether listening on YouTube later, what are 3 pieces of advice that you could give to somebody who finds themselves in a similar position of should I or shouldn't I, or I'm really freaking busy right now and I don't know if it's the right time to do it. Maybe I'll wait a month. Like, what is the best 3 things that you could give to somebody? Not to put you on the spot.
No. I was about to tell everybody, you put me on the spot. And this has been very organic. I appreciate that. No, yeah. So I think number 1 is you have to be open-minded. You can't just shut down and say, no, that's not going to be for us. You really have to be open-minded and understand what, not just Leap, but what technology can do for your business. Because if you're open-minded and you can accept that, that's 50% of the game. I would say number 2 is really take the time to take a step back and look at your business, where it is now and where you want to take your business. Because that's, we're so busy, what we talked about, it's like, you're only focused on like the here and now, but, really think about where you want to take your business and what it needs to take, what it's going to take to get there. And I really believe that keep an open mind and you understand where you want to take your business. Leap is definitely something that you want to at least take a look at and see.
We appreciate the shameless plug.
Huh? I
said we appreciate the shameless plug.
No, and then that leads to my third. It's just, hey, just check it out.
Yeah.
Check it out. If it's not for you, it's not for you.
And look, the thing that I will say to you guys is, again, I can't stress this enough. We hear it so often that, oh my God, I'm just so busy. 30 minutes out of your day to do a quick demo and understand exactly what it does. Every one of you has that operational mindset. You can look at something and be like, is my process going to fit into that, or could I make that work? you'll know within the first 5 minutes of that demo whether or not this is going to fit for you.
Right. So so again, it's just being open-minded, understanding where you want to take your business, and number 3 is taking the time to understand how Leap can help you take you to the promised land.
Nice. So again, thank you guys so much for joining us. We'll open it up if anyone has any questions. Jason, to go back and answer what you had asked before, just on time to take up, as an FYI, a lot of our customers typically takes them somewhere between like 30 and 90 days to come on board. The good thing with these guys is Steve supplemented a lot of that work very early on, but worked extremely tightly with them to start incorporating those other pieces. Obviously, when you're starting at 0, it's a hell of a lot more difficult than when you're starting at something that's a very tried and true tested product like it is today. So a lot of what he was going through, like Tom had said, through those GroupMe chats, there's those pain in the ass moments where a rep will be in the field going, damn it, I just wish it did this. You know, a lot of those little one-off shifts and changes that were made organically really helped Leap become what it is today. I'm talking with a lot of the customers now that are bringing this up to speed, like Tom said, it's the price guide. Like the price guide is the biggest hurdle that there is, but one of the values that we have as an organization is that it's difficult at first, but once you get over that hump, Tom, I'll ask you this, did you ever see yourself going back?
No, absolutely not. Speaking to the price guide, it's like set it and forget it.
Yeah.
Because once you have that done,
it is.
Aside from adding new products or upgrading tweaks, because I just know price guide management for us was always a constant struggle. And then
there's that terrifying Excel sheet.
Oh man, it was, and you didn't know who had their hands in it, and when it had been touched, and what was accurate and what was not. And that price guide, like I said, it makes you get your crap together. It makes you get your crap together. And the one thing that I didn't mention was the payment capture feature.
Mm-hmm.
That was like a huge thing.
Was that a game changer for you guys?
That was a game changer for me, because being
compliance is scary.
PCI compliant and not having to, I can't tell you how many times an installer or a sales rep told me they lost a customer's check. What's that conversation look like?
Well, you've had it. Tell us.
We put it in the shredder, and that's usually where it goes anyway, probably because they put their papers in the shredder box or whatever. Yeah. It's not a good conversation to have.
Plus, you got to go out there and get another one.
You have to let the customer know that they need to stop payment on that check and that it was lost, and it's just embarrassing. It's just embarrassing. But the PCI compliance and being able to accept that check and then being able to have that money in your bank account in almost real time. Of course, there's a day
processing
or two
delays,
processing delays, but it's not a processing delay where that information had to get back to your admin, had to be entered, and then you're getting the funds a week later.
Yeah, so one of our customers actually, we'll forego the name, but when they were coming up on board, one of the questions that I remember asking them in person, because I saw them at a dealer summit that we went to, because they're one of our partners. And one of the questions I asked them was like, cool, so when you take a payment, what happens? And they say, well, for credit cards, we have a payment authorization form. And then for checks, we just do paper checks. And I say, well, you operate in multiple counties. How did you get all those back? He goes, oh, we overnight them to our admin. You overnight them? How much are you spending in postage annually? And he goes, I don't know, let me check. A day later, he comes back and he's like, yeah, I checked that line item. We're paying $17,000 a year in FedEx. Boom. One little thing that costs $150 a month to use basically shifted off that massive of an expense. So again, that's an extreme example, but at the same time, to your point, we did a webinar on this with our partners at WorldPay. The risk of not being PCI compliant, that'll never happen to me. Yeah, but if it does, one infraction could cost you your entire business.
Right.
Ask yourself the question, how many of you guys have $250,000 on hand to pay in fines alone, and then run the risk of American Express or Visa just going, yeah, you're not allowed to accept Visa anymore.
Right. Hey, there's one thing I wanted to add before we go.
Yeah.
Just this year, I think Steve had mentioned in his in his series with you that he had built, and we had talked about it, about Measuremate for the production side.
Yeah. Measurement, yeah.
It was Measuremate. It's called
yeah.
Measuremate, and we were literally using that up until I believe March of this year.
Mm-hmm.
We have since built a production office within Leap, and it's a game changer. I had no idea that it could be done. I always just thought of Leap as kind of point of sale, all in one. It's your baby for when you're sitting at the kitchen table.
Mm-hmm.
But the production portion that we built is awesome.
So what do you have it do functionally within the production side of the work?
So the project managers go out to the site after the job is sold. They pull that job in just like you would if you're a sales rep.
Mm-hmm.
Just through the search field.
Yep.
And then you put your order sheets in and pictures, and you shoot it right up to the office. The office has everything. No more emailing, anything like that.
Yep.
Everything is right there. It's attached to your CRM. And
the only major difference is now your production side of the world has access to using Leap, just in a very different capacity. They can't see what the sales guys see other than pulling in that customer data. And then from there, we met, I think it was Halloween we actually met. I think I was dressed as a T-Rex, and Alex Hamilton was sitting in this seat and dressed as a zombie. And basically in that, we showed you that you could build custom forms and point them to wherever you need to go. Tom and the crew here at New Look have actually used that to build that full-on production portal. So there's a lot of really cool
things. It's full circle.
Yeah.
Full circle. So it's again, I never really thought about that, but Steve would no longer support Measuremate, and I think it was on iOS 7, so we were all running around on iPads that hadn't been updated in 2-3 years.
Yeah.
And so we built it out, and it's been great. Great. And everybody has updated iPads.
Awesome. Sweet. So you guys, you got a really good thing to stew over and think of as you start to look internally at your own business. There's a lot of different ways in which you can expand, even if you're already currently using Leap for your sales teams, even to bring that into just that deeper level with those additional integrations with financing, secure payment, all that other good stuff. As well, like Tom was saying, use it on the production side. Every one of those guys is going out into the field, referencing what was sold, and then filling out additional details in different forms. So if you can fully digitize the entire end-to-end process, you're basically making it as efficient as possible. So I can't thank you enough for doing this, man. It's a really neat thing to see how, again, your business has so heavily shaped the use of this for everybody else. Again, so much of the ideas and the features and the functionality, and even Steve would have never had the ability to come in and create something like this if it weren't for you guys. So again, kudos to this guy for not turning Steve away for dressing like his grandpa.
I tease him about that almost every time I see him, so it's all good.
Yeah, but again, we're very grateful to have you guys. New Look's been an amazing partner, and you guys are doing some pretty cool things. Honestly.
Yeah, and I'd just like to say back to the people that joined in and the people that are going to join in later, if there's any questions that you have for me, you can point them to James, and I'll be more than happy to. We could either connect, or James could get the answer for you, even if it doesn't have anything to do with Leap, because again, we've been doing this for almost 17 years, and I know there's a lot of challenges out there, and me and my partner, we're always happy to help. So
awesome.
Thanks a lot, guys.
If you guys have any of those questions, feel free to reach out directly to us, info@leaptodigital.com. If you guys are new to this and you want to actually see what the product can do for you, feel free to jump in. Just go to leaptodigital.com and hit that request a demo. One of our sales guys will give you the run through exactly what this guy sees if he requests it as well. So again, excited to continue this series. The next one that we're going to be doing, we're going to be looking at two sides of this. We're going to be pulling in some of the other customers that were our customer number one outside of this guy. Obviously, they had a much different view of it. And Jason, going back to it, what does it take for an outside company that Leap wasn't organically grown inside of? What is it like for somebody like that to come up to speed? Plus, in the next little bit, before we break for 2020, we're going to be talking a little bit about more of the vision for Leap moving into the future. So kind of that next 1 to 5 year plan, so you guys can see some of the cool features that we're going to be baking in. He's seen some of it, which is actually really exciting, but there's going to be some pretty badass stuff coming our way, you guys. That's just going to make Leap even more potent. So any questions whatsoever, feel free to reach out. Tom, thank you again for doing this.
Awesome, man.
Always
Thank
a
you.
pleasure.
Thanks everybody for joining in.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
Thank you guys, and we'll see you next time.